Hey, Dad.
Hey, what?
Why did the hawk sit on the church's steeple?
I don't know. Why?
Because it was a bird of prey.
No! Go to your room.
Rude.
You're listening to The Wayward Willis with Jon and Logan, where two atheists discuss religion, culture, and maybe some politics. If you're offended by blasphemy, profanity, or you hate fun, this podcast may not be right for you. And now, on to the show.
Hey, you.
It's us.
Now with even more pants.
I'm your host, Jon Willis.
And I'm his better-looking counterpart, Logan.
Doubtful. And today we're going to talk about whether or not you need to know something in order to actually know it. We're talking about belief.
You know what they say, knowing is half the battle. In this scenario, I guess it's kind of the whole battle.
There's no battle.
Oh, we're not battling?
Not now.
It's time to duel!
No.
Shout out to my boy Yugi. Alright, so what even is belief?
Well, the dictionary defines belief as something that is accepted, considered to be true, or held as an opinion. Beliefs can rely on knowledge and evidence, or they can be fabricated whole cloth.
As long as I have a decent thread count, I don't mind the fabricated ones.
Oh, I don't like the scratchy ones.
I go for the quadruple digit thread count.
I hate it when my beliefs, chafe my inner thighs. Then I have to walk off on it.
Alright, too far. I believe that this is too far.
That's not what we're talking about.
So anyway,
in a religious context, belief usually means absolute certainty despite a lack of evidence. This applies equally to all gods and god concepts because the truth is nobody has ever been able to provide any evidence at all that any gods exist.
except Pastafarians, that stuff is all over the place. Italian restaurants are like gold mines for those guys.
You don't really know what that is, do you?
Don't tell them that.
Okay. The problem with belief is that it's often unjustified. You're justified in believing that your parents had parents because there's ample evidence to support that belief, especially if you visit your grandparents every summer.
You can even substantiate that belief with DNA testing if you're skeptical.
Like on Maury Povich?
I mean, not exactly, but I guess.
Like a Who's Your Daddy kind of thing?
If that's how you want to do it. Dude. Oh, is Jerry Springer still airing? Is that a thing that they still do?
I don't know, man. I don't watch TV.
It would be rather unfortunate if it were. But anyway.
I got nothing.
All right, moving on.
However, you are not justified in believing you can fly off a building because humans can't do that, and all of the evidence suggests that you'll fall and die, no matter how much you believe.
But are we 100% sure about that, though?
What universe are we talking about?
The one where I'm on the top of the roof right now?
Are you on the top of a roof right now?
Yeah. I decided that the rooftop is the best place to do a podcast.
Are you gonna jump?
I'm thinking about it. This isn't like a depression thing, though.
No, it's for science. So the operating term we're talking about when discussing belief is justification. Belief doesn't have to apply only to gods, though. Equally as unevidenced would be the belief in Sasquatch, Yetis, the Loch Ness Monster, or alien abductions. In fact, let's go through some common or strange beliefs and talk about the justifications for each.
Santa Claus!
Woo, Santa Claus! Children believe in Santa Claus if their parents or another person in a position of authority has told them Santa Claus exists.
Kind of like homework. It's just a myth, kids. Don't let your parents tell you otherwise.
Stay in school, kids. The evidence manifests itself by way of presents under the tree on Christmas and an elaborate web of lies spun by authority figures to force the child into good behavior.
Hey, Dad, how does Santa get in our house when we don't have a chimney?
Well, son, he has a magic key to every house, so if there's no chimney, he can get in through the front door.
That's not creepy at all.
Know him? There's a key under the doormat. Santa is not going to kill you. I know nothing.
All right.
Speaking of which, children don't know any better. So they believe these lies and they play along until they become too skeptical. Or some douchebag 8-year-old who's been held back in second grade over and over because he can't stop drawing Pepe the Frog as an answer to every workbook question tells them there's no Santa because he wants to watch them cry.
Hold on. Are you suggesting that Pepe the Frog isn't the answer to every workbook question?
No, I'm just suggesting that 8-year-old is stupid.
All right.
Anyway, we view it as reasonable for a child to believe in Santa, but not adults. And as you've pointed out before, very few, if any, adults actually believe in Santa.
But I mean, there's a first for everything, Dad. Don't be a sheep. Break the mold.
Are you saying that you believe in Santa?
I'm saying that you should. What's wrong with you?
I buy your presents.
Touche.
What's up next?
Bigfoot!
Bigfoot is a mythical creature brought into the spotlight of popular culture by a film in 1967 by Roger Patterson and Robert Gimlin, showing an ape-like humanoid walking mostly upright with a strange gait.
Not to be confused with just about every single Vin Diesel movie. Similar, but not exactly the same.
Ooh, good call. I thought you were going to play on the strange gate for a strange fence.
Nope.
Damn it.
Nope.
You don't know me. This story spawned an entire field of useless pseudoscience called cryptozoology, which basically means the study of things that don't exist. I can't even explain the reasoning behind this one. First of all, it doesn't matter if Bigfoot exists or not. Unless you own a business whose livelihood depends on actually seeing Bigfoot, the question of its existence is irrelevant and stupid.
Whoa. That's some strong language. As somebody with a deeply held belief in the existence of unicorns, I won't talk smack about you Bigfoot believers. You've just gotta believe.
They're so fluffy!
I'm gonna die!
No serious scientist has ever suggested that Bigfoot would be a significant find in the archaeological record or explain any currently unexplained phenomenon. At best, searching for Bigfoot is a fun way for people who want to be outdoors anyway to spend some time outdoors and also get eaten by bears.
Yum.
Actually, an interesting point here. Maybe the existence of Bigfoot is important to bears because idiots wandering around the woods with night vision cameras are easier to catch than deer.
Holy shit, you're onto something here. Bigfoot is just a massive conspiracy stitched together by all the bears in the 60s. I'm doing research on this as we speak, and I just found a picture of Robert Gimlin with a bear holding a gun to his head while he's editing the film.
Holy shit.
This is big, bro. We're gonna take down those bears. We got all the dirt on them.
Down with bears.
Bears. Beats. Battlestar Galactica.
What?
It's The Office. You don't understand.
Oh, damn it. Speaking of Robert Gimlin and bears, aside from the single widely disputed film and some footprint hoaxes, the only justification for believing in Bigfoot is the desire to believe in Bigfoot. And also an addiction to the compelling drama of finding Bigfoot on Animal Planet.
Hey man, you can make a reality TV show about anything nowadays. We should start our own show, and it'll be called Finding God. It's gonna be huge. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it.
Hey, question for you.
What?
What do we do with God once we find him?
We put him in a box under the stairs in the corner of the basement half a block down the street from Jerry's Bait Shop. You know the place. Oh, man.
Hey, Logan.
What's up?
What's dumber than Bigfoot?
Bigfoot drawing Pepe the Frog?
I was going for alien abductions, but I think you're right.
Alien abductions!
So people who believe in alien abductions either claim to have been abducted themselves or know someone who has. The first recorded alien abduction story in the United States came from Betty and Barney Hill in 1961. This couple from New Hampshire claimed they were abducted by a flying saucer while trying to escape it in their car. The next day, they said their clothes were torn and their watches stopped at the same time they were abducted. Also, their butts might have hurt. I'm not sure. These stories come from all around the world and have many of the same elements, like flying saucers with blinding lights, taking a person via tractor beam, strapping them to a table so they can't move, and doing experiments on them, usually by way of shoving something up the person's ass.
In my experience, that's the best and most effective way to perform scientific research. Moving on.
Okay. I think this is where alien abduction beliefs kind of mimic belief in the Jewish and Christian God, because aliens are fascinated with buttholes the same way Jehovah is fixated on penises. Anyway, there's never any evidence of these alien abductions because almost all of the stories relate that the person's, quote, missing time is made up by the fact that the aliens can turn back time and return them to where they abducted them at the instant they were taken. Convenient, huh?
Hold on now. What about crop circles? Where else did those crazy shapes come from? No way are those man-made.
Really?
Alright, I guess there's a little bit of a way.
No, I mean, like, you can't think of maybe just one way you could make crop circles?
I mean, if we're being honest here, nope.
Not even one. Try.
I guess a really hungry hobo? I guess they don't have to be homeless. Just a really hungry person. Christine,
what about a goat?
Every single time... Okay, so, sidetrack here. Whenever I am, like, surprising Christine with something, like, if I want to go take her to see a movie, but I don't want her to know that I'm taking her to see a movie, I tell her that we're going to a corn festival, and it's gotten to a point where she's actually like, no, for real, I want to go to a corn festival. I love corn.
Can
I
ask you something?
What?
What the hell is a corn festival?
Clearly it's a festival where it's just corn everywhere. Corn
No, what I'm
everywhere.
asking is, have you actually heard of a corn festival?
I don't think that you have to have heard about it. I'm sure it exists somewhere in, like, fucking Wisconsin or something.
Well, I'm just saying, like, Bacon Fest, real thing. Corn Fest?
You know what?
I'm not sure.
You know what? Corn festivals, 2017 to 2018. Find corn events, everfest.com. There's clearly so many corn festivals. Right here, Oasis Families Farm Sweet Corn Fest, Strattsburg Corn Festival, Oakland City Sweet Corn Festival, Eden Corn Festival. Fuck you, man. Corn festivals exist.
Hey, can I tell you a secret?
What?
Who gives a shit?
Christine, apparently.
Hey, should we get back to the show?
Probably.
Okay. Justification for these beliefs usually comes by way of an argumentum ad populum, or argument to the people, where the number and similarities of stories from people who don't know each other are viewed as wide agreement on their validity. However, if the number of stories were actually an indicator of truth, then Elvis is still alive and Doctor Strange was a good movie.
All right, well, that's just rude. You're just jealous because you don't have a magical cape artifact. Spoiler alert, folks, my dad is the worst person to recommend movies to.
I just have a very high standard for my entertainment. Is that so wrong?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Oh.
But, you know what?
Yeah?
Gods!
Hey, we're right back to where we need to be. So for all of recorded human history, we've had some kind of God belief. Sometimes it's one God. Sometimes it's a metric crap ton of gods.
Oh, has that been officially accepted as a metric unit of measurement now?
It has now. But much like alien abduction, the belief maintains its hold because of popularity. Belief in gods isn't based on actual evidence, but personal analogies and phenomena that appear to be unexplainable, like miracles.
I mean, how else would we have magic? Watch as I pull my thumb off, then reattach it. Mind freak.
Oh, have you ever heard that song, Chris Angel is a Douchebag?
It's not a song, it's the name of a Psych episode.
Oh, god damn it, it's not, it's Supernatural.
It's supernatural. You're terrible at everything. So let's talk about gods some more.
Oh, hey, gods. So even though the gods of ancient cultures that died out have become mythology, like we mentioned in episode 1, the popular gods today are seen as entirely different and somehow more believable. The problem is that today's gods have exactly as much evidence of their existence as Odin, Poseidon, Ra, or Quetzalcoatl. That is to say, none.
Well, I would actually argue that the gods of yore have more solid evidence than the gods people believe in today. Like, at least Ra provided the Egyptians with warmth, light, and growth from the actual sun you could actually see in the sky.
Well, yeah, but it could be argued that the actual sun in the actual sky was doing that and not Ra.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know
I
what?
guess what I'm saying is...
You know what?
When we aren't quite as stupid, we don't use gods to explain things.
Well, shut up.
Okay, speaking of explaining things, people who believe in gods use their beliefs to explain things they don't understand, justify bigotry and hatred, and claim to be the good guys in war. When confronted about their belief in gods, they'll usually say something like, I can't prove God exists, I just know.
Okay, so story time. I literally had a Spanish teacher in middle school who straight up told us at the beginning of the school semester that if we asked her why there were exceptions to conjugation rules in the Spanish language, her response would be, because God wanted it that way. I'm pretty sure it's because of the inhabitants of Spain wanted that way, but what do I know?
You know, actually, the variations in language, and this is something that we can absolutely talk about in a later episode, but languages are a fantastic example of how evolution works. And in case you weren't aware, evolution kind of goes against the God belief. That brings us to a distinction between the other beliefs and the God belief: certainty. I mean, Bigfoot hunters are actively trying to find hard evidence to prove Bigfoot exists. Children who believe in Santa Claus can at least point to Christmas presents and half-eaten cookies and say, see, this is exactly what Santa would do. Is that a good kid voice?
Yeah, I guess. I'll give it like a 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, actually, that's really not bad. Like age 7.5? Did it sound like a 7.5-year-old?
7.5-year-old girl, maybe. Oh, roasted.
Let me go higher with a lisp. See, this is exactly what Santa would do.
All right, well, now it's borderline creepy.
Oh, moving on. God believers, on the other hand, simply wave away the need for evidence altogether or repeatedly point at their holy books as though that would convince you. God believers will point at something benign or insignificant and say, God did that.
Except when it's a bad thing, then it's just part of his plan, but he didn't necessarily do it per se.
Right, because he's in charge of everything, but he doesn't do everything.
You're not wrong.
I don't really understand how that works.
Nor do I, my friend.
You know what that's called?
Hypocrisy?
It's called confirmation bias.
Hip-hop-hocracy?
Hippopotcracy?
Oh, nailed.
I believe that's it for now. We'll bring Logan right back after the aliens get done putting things up his butt. I've got Tom here with me from the Dumb All Over podcast, but I wanted to take just a minute to allow you to kind of introduce another project that you're working on that seems pretty exciting.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, I'm Tom. I'm the worst half of Dumb All Over. Austin and myself, that's my co-host, we decided to try to create some other side content. He already has his called Single Shot, which focuses on like news events that are going on in the world that we can't catch up with because it either happens after the recording or it's just too much to talk about. So I decided to start my own solo podcast, I guess you can say, to focus on topics that I kind of just want to talk about, topics that we don't really get to talk about on our other show because we have so much other stuff to talk about. And that show's called Affirmative Assessment. The first episode was released on Monday, the 17th of July. And I'm trying to do a weekly podcast there. So every Monday, something would come out. Every week, a brand new topic, something that I want to talk about or people suggest to me. So I'm getting that kicked off.
Cool. And so this new affirmative assessment that you're working on is not even particularly geared toward politics, like the major portion of Dumb All Over is really geared toward politics.
Right. Yeah. No, actually, to be completely honest, even though the first episode was literally about political parties, I want to talk about more than just politics, because if you follow politics or you talk about politics, you realize that politics is really stressful. There is there's so much going on and it's not all good. Actually, most of it's bad. So talking about music and sports and movies and TV shows, that is going to be so good for my psyche. And that's kind of the goal, something just to provide something different, because our whole spiel is we're a progressive podcast that talks about politics, religion, and pop culture. But we never talk about pop culture because there's no time for it. So I'm kind of focusing on the pop culture part.
Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be really fun and a welcome break from all the craziness.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, having said that, I'm going to drag you right back into it because I did listen to your first episode of Affirmative Assessment and I enjoyed it. I really do like your point of view on pretty much everything. And I do like listening to you and Austin talk through it. You guys are kind of a hoot sometimes. But one of the things that I heard on your first episode is you talked a lot about political party and how, the two-party system is garbage. I think that we definitely agree on that. And the first thing that kind of got my attention is it seems like your take on it is we'd probably be better off with more parties rather than fewer parties. And I think that the way that I approach this is the party system altogether is garbage. I'd like to see zero parties.
Yeah, I mean, I thought a lot about this, and I wasn't really sure whether or not I thought no parties would be good or if more parties would be good. And I figured in a common sense kind of way or a logical way that we're never going to get rid of political parties. I think political parties, no matter what, is part of politics. Since the Greeks created democracy, there was always at least two sides of something.
Yeah, because I think that the political party and the identification with those political parties actually ties into just societal tribalism.
Exactly. Yeah, people want to be a part of the same group. Like it's natural for humans to get together with people who agree with them. That's why people people move into the cities, not only for work and transportation and stuff like that, but because there's a lot. Most of the people who live in cities are liberal. Meanwhile, most of the people who live in countryside are conservative. That's not an accident. That's the way people want to move in together.
Right.
So for political parties, I don't think you'll ever get rid of political parties. I think political parties, it's nice to think about maybe no parties, just candidates. That's nice. But assuming we're always going to have political parties, yeah, I feel like a few more political parties wouldn't hurt. A lot of the major countries in the world that use democracy have more than 2 political parties. And as I made a point in my show, the Democrats and Republicans have at least 2 sides to their party. The Democrats could easily be split into like the corporate Democrats and the progressives, and the Republicans could be put into like the basic conservatives and then the alt-right, and to provide at least a candidate for each of those political parties, at least you have more options to choose from, so you're not stuck with just 1 bad or 2 bad candidates.
Right. Well, and having seen what went on with libertarians and Green Party in this election, the impression that I really came away from the election with was that the Green Party is kind of full of kooks, and the libertarians just don't have any real stance on anything at all.
Yeah, well, the Libertarian Party is very strange because it's socially liberal and fiscally conservative. That's their whole thing. So social issues like abortion, gay marriage, legalization of marijuana or drugs in general, they tend to be very liberal. And then running the economy and spending and funding, they tend to be conservative. So they're a very strange party, and they attract very strange people sometimes. Gary Johnson himself was a very strange candidate. And the Green Party,
Agreed.
Yeah, and some of the things that he did was just like, I can't believe that somebody would actually even do that. But and you're not really wrong with the Green Party either, but I also think that because they're such a small party, you don't really hear about all the candidates. You're kind of stuck with the one person. Can you name another person in the Green Party other than Jill Stein?
No, and the thing is, I do remember hearing about the Green Party in elections long ago, right after I was able to vote. And honestly, I don't, I can't remember anything at all about any Green Party candidate.
Exactly, and it's not necessarily because they put up bad candidates. Jill Stein might not have been the greatest candidate in the world, but a lot of her views were very good, or at least very progressive. But they're not given a chance. There's no fairness in those parties, or given to those parties. They're not allowed to debate unless they're polling at 15%. Which is a bullshit number. It's a fake number that was invented by these 2 major political parties. And you know what? Even though I don't really agree with a lot of things libertarians do, they were screwed too. Gary Johnson was polling at like 13% at one point. And they're like, well, you didn't get to that magic 15, so you can't debate with Trump and Hillary. And that's
right. Well, and even if he hadn't been polling at 13%, I mean, if he was going to make it on any of the major tickets in any part of the country, then he should have been on the stage.
Absolutely. I mean, in England, anybody who's running for Parliament gets a chance to debate. Anybody
Lord
who's
Buckethead.
Yeah, exactly. That's he actually goes and debates. And,
I love that guy.
And he's like what's the guy's name? I always forget his name, but there's one guy in American politics. He's just like that. He wears
it's the rat lord. What? Oh god.
He wears a boot on his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what his name is.
Rat something. I can't remember. I'd have to look that up.
Vermin Supreme.
There you go. Vermin. Awesome. He's
been running for president since like the 90s.
Yeah.
But, do these guys actually deserve the right to debate? In my opinion, in a way, yes. If they file to run for president, they probably should be able to debate. But because the 2-party system is in absolute power, there's only 2 people allowed to debate during the presidency, which is, it's not fair. Because then what happens in like elections like this, where you get a center Democrat who in a lot of ways leans right, And then on the other side, you get a candidate who is preaching these alt-right positions. So the moderate Republicans and the liberal Democrats have no one to vote for. You can throw away a vote by voting for a third party like the Green Party or Libertarian. And I only say it's throwing away because they stand no chance.
Right.
If they stood a chance, then that's not throwing it away. But because Gary Johnson had no chance of winning, by voting for him, you're just screwing out one of the other candidates.
Right. Well, or helping one of the other candidates.
Or helping. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I know a person who went to the polls on election day and wrote in Bernie fucking Sanders.
Right.
Verbatim. And I'm like, how stupid are you?
Right. And listen, I'm a gigantic Bernie supporter. I never really thought about writing him in because what's the point? He's not going to win.
Well, and I mean, the whole concept of a protest vote is just absolutely ridiculous when, having seen what actually transpired in this election and how close the numbers were or could have been, a protest vote was just asinine. Anybody who did that, they're the problem.
Well, I agree with you because Gary Johnson won, I think it's 3% of the vote. And if you look at the people who voted for him, it was mostly Democrats because his social policies were liberal. They were more liberal than Hillary Clinton's because the libertarians just kind of had this mentality where they want you to be able to do whatever you want as long as you're following the law. And in some cases, fix the law so that you're free, government out of your life. And a lot of liberals really, really like that. And they weren't going to vote for Hillary Clinton for that. So they were like, well, let me vote for Gary Johnson. By taking 3% of the vote, you cost the election, and you in one way or another are deliberately responsible for having Donald Trump as president right now.
Try and think of a worse president.
I can't. I can't.
I've been racking my brain. I'm like, what person? Like even freaking Ted Cruz. I mean, oh God, Ted Cruz. Even if he would have made it, like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I was just talking to my dad because recently John McCain was just diagnosed with brain cancer. So, and I was telling my dad, who's a liberal in his own right, I said to him, I'm like, I don't dislike John McCain. And it's not because I agree with his policies, because I sure as hell don't. But I would take John McCain as president right now. I would probably give my left testicle for that. Yeah.
I would. I really would.
Which actually brings me to my main question, right? And that was, it seems like you've kind of latched onto, or it's just maybe a remnant from all the election craziness, but it seems like you kind of latched onto the whole lesser of two evils idea behind Hillary, and I'd like to question you on that, because I think that there are some points to be made regarding Hillary herself, but also just what I feel is a false equivocation between the two candidates and who is now sitting in the Oval Office.
All right. Well, I'll start by saying this. I am not a Hillary Clinton supporter. I never have been. I never supported her. In 2008, my first election year, that was the first year I could vote. I had two major choices for the Democrats, Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. Even back then, I never supported Hillary Clinton. So I am not by any means a Hillary Clinton supporter. However, with that said, I did vote for Hillary Clinton. And it's not, like I said, it's not because of her policies, because a lot of her policies they don't follow what I believe in. And then there's also this big problem with flip-flopping. In like 2003, I think it was, as early as 2003, she was saying she does not support same-sex marriage. And then all of a sudden, a couple years ago, I've never said that. I've always supported same-sex marriage. Well, no, you haven't. And it's the issues like that, and she's done that with a lot of different issues that really makes me not like her. But
okay, I don't think that I picked up on that one.
Yeah, that's the major one that goes through my head all the time, because she has firmly said in the past that she does not support same-sex marriage. For what reason? I have no idea. But then all of a sudden, she's this champion for the LGBT community, and it's really strange to me. And that's one of the many issues. I mean, during the election or during the primaries, she was saying to the public that I was working on healthcare in the 90s. Where was Bernie? And then there's a picture of Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton standing right by each other announcing a healthcare bill in the 90s. You know, so stupid little things like that really make you wonder, like, what is she's just a politician. She's a good politician because she wants you to hear what you want to hear. And does that, you start to question, is she actually for these issues or is she against them? You don't really know. I still don't know where she stands on half the issues. But then you got to look at the other candidate, and it's Donald Trump. And Donald Trump starts off his stupid campaign by saying he's going to build a wall. Well, actually, he starts off by calling Mexicans rapists and drug dealers. Then says he's going to build a wall. Then says he's going to ban all Muslims, and one thing after another, grabbing women by the pussy. I could shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose votes. Making fun of handicapped people. And I could never get myself to vote for that. And
No.
Not even for a second of my life did I say, that's a good candidate. So there is a lesser of two evils because, like I said, Gary Johnson and Jill Stein, yes, they were running for president with Vermin Supreme, but they had no chance. You have to. You should have picked between Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. And as much as I don't like Hillary, at least she's not insane.
Right. Well, and not only that, but she's reasonable and she has a long history of working across the aisle. And yeah, I do get where you're coming from with the, she's just a politician. I get that. And I don't think that I would even take issue with that. But as far as, a candidate for presidency, it was hard for me to look at the entire field across both aisles and look at any one of them and say that person is uniquely qualified for that office.
I know.
And I think that the impression that I got from Hillary or the feeling that I got about Hillary was that she was the one person that was running for president in any party that was uniquely qualified and ready to step into office and hit the ground running.
Right. I agree. I really do agree. Like I said, she is a politician, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. We're finding out that a lot of Americans said, well, I don't want to vote for the politician. I want somebody who's never been in politics. But we're finding out that it's really important that a politician becomes president because what has Trump been able to do?
Golf.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, look, if we're scoring his presidency on golfing, this guy is top notch.
Not even. I golf. He's getting worse. How do you get worse?
Maybe it's the little pants that he's squeezing his big ass into.
Oh God, it's so unpleasant.
It's restricting movement. Okay, so I wanted to ask you actually a couple of things that might be fun little thought experiments.
Okay.
But my big question for you, just kind of wrapping up specifically the Hillary candidacy, is let's say, thought experiment, that she would have won the Electoral College, because she did win the vote.
She did.
But let's say that she won the Electoral College and she's in the Oval Office. What would your number one fear or your number one complaint with the Hillary presidency be?
My number one fear is that she would instantly stop backing the stuff that she pretended or at least came out and claimed that she supported, like same-sex marriage, like, even though that's a court decision, I'm just talking about it as a platform policy. Her stance on healthcare, which has never been pro single-payer healthcare, but all of a sudden, as we started getting closer to November, all of a sudden started becoming more like, hey, I support universal healthcare.
Yes.
So
that's actually where I was going with that. I was going to be like, well, recently.
Yeah, as of recent, that's what I'm a little afraid of. So my concern would be, well, where's she going to go now that she has power? Because once you become president, you can literally just look at your supporters and say, well, fuck you. You voted me in, but I don't really have to do what I said. They were not promises. They were just me talking. They were talking points.
Wait, you can do that?
Oh, well, absolutely.
No. Point to an example. There's no way.
Yeah, that's never happened. I know it's a rare thing. It's never happened in Washington before. Actually, it happened 2 days after Trump won the election when his crowd was chanting "Lock her up" because that was his whole thing. I'm gonna lock her up, and then he's like, "Well, okay, guys, that was good for the election, but now I'm president, and you don't have to do that anymore." But that would be my number one concern. I'd also be afraid that all these things that she's locked herself in, because she's not innocent. The problem with Hillary is she had a lot of baggage, and we don't know whether or not some of this baggage would come back to haunt her. And even if nothing happened, just the fact that would be in the way, sort of like what Trump's going through. Let's just, for fun, pretend that there's no collusion with Russia. Let's just pretend, okay?
All right.
All of this investigation, all of this talk, and all this constant focus on the Russian collusion would just, if there is no Russian collusion, would just have gotten in the way. So that means the last 6 months were completely wasted because we were going after something that didn't exist. So at best, for Hillary Clinton, the Republicans would have been pounding her with this stuff. And even if there was nothing to get her in trouble with, it would have just been in the way. And as we've seen, that's a problem.
So you're thinking that Hillary presidency for at least the first 6 months looks a lot like a Trump presidency.
Not as bad. I mean, this is as bad as it can get. I don't think it could get any worse. But there would be moments of it. That email bullshit would come back. I
can't even believe. Oh God, emails.
I know. Don't forget, John McCain, when the Comey investigation was going on, he brought up the emails in June.
Yes. Yes.
So it would have come back because Hillary's not even there, and they're bringing it up still.
Oh my gosh, I'm tired of it.
So am I. It's absolutely obnoxious because, for one, it's keeping her name out in the public. And a recent poll by a fairly liberal publishing company came out and said that Hillary Clinton is actually more disliked than Donald Trump. That is bad.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. The thing is, I can see, the Clinton name, like Chelsea would never be able to run for president.
No.
Probably not even be able to run for Senate.
Her name is tarnished. It really is.
It's a bad name. I mean, you just can't do anything as a Clinton now. And I truly feel, and I was saying this during the election, I said this right after the election results hit, and like I used up my last Kleenex. That I honestly feel that Hillary's biggest fault when it came out to actually seeing how the election results fell, that Hillary's biggest fault wasn't that she was a Clinton or that she was a Democrat, it's that she was a woman. And yeah. I honestly feel, because I had a person I never would have even suspected would have been a Trump voter, who voted for Trump, and he told me that he would never vote for Hillary, and he told me that women are not biologically wired to be able to do a job like the president. And I was like, fuck you.
Yeah, tell Germany that, who's experiencing some of their biggest growth in their history. Tell all the other countries that are run by women.
What really gets me about this whole thing is that this person that told me that has 2 adult daughters. I'm like, oh God.
No, and listen, I'm not the one to defend Hillary until I'm tired. But in that case, you are 100% accurate. If Hillary Clinton was a man, you're probably dealing with another Clinton presidency right now.
Yeah.
What's also amazing is that the country was. Well, there's a lot of baggage with Hillary Clinton, and I'm not sure how much that had to do with it, but I think that was enough for people to say the baggage and the fact that she's a woman that's like, oh, I can't vote for her. It's obviously a mistake, because the worst Hillary Clinton presidency would still be better than what we have right now.
Absolutely 100% agree. And then let's also talk, I mean, obviously we don't just have a president, we have a vice president, and Pence is, because he is not stupid like Trump, who is clearly, and shows us every day that he is a fucking idiot.
Yes.
Pence is not an idiot.
No, unfortunately.
But he is fanatical, and I would describe him as nefarious. Having seen that, and having seen the types of people that Trump is surrounding himself with and appointing to unelected positions. Let's talk about Tim Kaine for a second.
Oh, no. Why?
Go ahead and comment on him. I know he's just like vanilla custard, like, or not even, he's like seltzer water. Like there's no flavor. There's a little bit of bubble, but
I was going to go tell you to go downstairs to your basement or go to your house, get a piece of cardboard and draw a face on it, and you have more personality than Tim Kaine. But I couldn't believe that they picked him. I had no idea who he was, and I follow politics a lot. And I had heard his name maybe once or twice in like a reference. This bill was voted by blah, 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 and Tim Kaine and blah, 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 blah. You know, like I've never actually seen anything about him. So I was curious to see him. That vice presidential debate solidified the fact that they had made a terrible mistake. They found somebody who was worse than Pence, who acted like a child during that vice presidential debate, and then he had nothing to give to the progressive side of the Democratic Party. Donald Trump picked Mike Pence because Donald Trump is a little baby who appeals to the alt-right, but not the religious people, because he's probably more of an atheist than I am in a lot of senses.
I get that impression.
Yeah, he said 2 Corinthians. He doesn't even know how to speak Bible.
I know. Even non-Christian, non-Bible readers would still be able to look at it and be like, yeah, 2 Corinthians, first, second.
Not 2 Corinthians. Plus, Donald Trump has been pro-LGBT for many years. So the religious right were like, I can't vote for him. So what do you go and get? You get literally the whitest guy. Evil. Yeah, and you get the whitest Christian you can find, and that's Mike Pence, who believes in gay conversion camps.
Correct.
That's how you win an election. And that's that. So by picking Tim Kaine, who will go down as who?
Yeah.
It was a huge mistake.
Utterly boring. But I will tell you that there was one standout moment for me in the vice presidential debate. And the reason for that is I grew up steeped in religion. And I live in the Midwest, surrounded by religion. And one of the things that has always gotten me is that there is such a blatant and purposeful, showy display of religion by every politician in office. And that not only, I mean, it's pervasive.
It really is.
And awful on the right, but even on the left, you talk to these people and they tell you how important their faith is to them, and you can see their policy decisions kind of being bent by it at times. And one of the things that Tim Kaine said when he was questioned, and it was particularly striking having him sit next to insane fundamentalist Christian,
right,
where Tim Kaine was asked a question about whether his religion would guide his policies, and he came straight back with, you know what, my religion is personal. It guides my personal actions, but I feel that my religion doesn't extend to the population at large. And when deciding on policy decisions, my decision would be based on what is good for America and not what is good for my faith.
Right.
And that just, it struck me because that's the first time I think that is the first time I've ever heard that from a politician.
Well, I mean, listen, and I'm not trying to just glorify Bernie Sanders, but Bernie was on that same board because Bernie's a Jew, but he's a non-practicing Jew. And when that question kept coming up, he said pretty much the same thing. Religion and politics should have nothing to do with each other. So yes, I commend Tim Kaine for that. That's actually, and he's a senator from Virginia, so it's even weirder coming from somebody from Virginia. But that's the way it should be. You know, religion should not play a part in politics. And God, Bush said that God told him to go to war. Every president has to say, you know, thank you, God. Okay.
God bless America.
God bless America. You know, it's like,
I hate that phrase.
I know.
I hate it.
Because I hate to break it to people, but God would not be on the side of the Americans.
No, he would not.
So that's a kind of a silly thing. But listen, it's unfortunately, it's the world it's the country that we live in. And you're starting to see a more secular nation. So I suspect that you're going to start seeing more politicians start to say that, because religion is not really an issue for this generation. You know, my generation, millennials, and Generation X, the generation right before, there's really not a focus on religion anymore. So by appealing to religious people, you're really only appealing to the people who are going to vote Republican, even if you don't talk about God.
Right.
So hopefully religion starts to get out of the public eye, but not if President Pence chooses. I assume we're going to have a President Pence, by the way. So
you're trying to make me cry. All right. Well, I'm trying not to become too cynical. A little bit cynical is not too bad, but
it's hard not to. It really is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah. Speaking of cynical, since we're on the religious subject.
Oh boy.
So the whole Johnson Amendment bullshit is I've heard so many angles on it, and pretty much everyone is coming down on the side of who freaking cares. The Johnson Amendment has never been, I want to say, prosecuted. It's not like it's a law that someone would get taken to court over. But, we've had in the past a coalition of pastors that have gotten together once a year to specifically shun the Johnson Amendment and get political in public.
Right.
And they obviously don't give a crap, and nobody's holding them to it. My big thing with this, getting rid of the Johnson Amendment.
Well, trying to, because if I'm not mistaken, he just passed an executive order. I forgot what it was called. It was like order promoting free speech and religious liberty or something like that. But an executive order, because it's a court decision, or because it's an amendment, an executive order won't just get rid of it.
Right.
But it starts that conversation.
Well, and it provides guidance to the agencies that are supposed to enforce it.
Exactly.
But the thing that really gets me about this and other things that we could talk about, like RFRA, are just the incredible amount of just naive stupidity on the part of religious people, and not religious people, but Christians specifically, right. American Christians who go for these types of acts and these type of actions, not realizing that religion means not just Christian, it means every religion. And so then when they go for something like, like the Trinity Lutheran case, I mean, what do you think is going to happen the first time that a mosque is going to ask for a government grant in order to upgrade their playground?
Oh, absolutely. They're going to get...
how's that going to fly?
No, not well at all. And yeah, that's a very good point. To be honest with you, I didn't even think of it like that, but that's a really good point. What happens when mosques start to endorse candidates? What happens then?
Well, and not only that, but then you've also got, because churches are 501c3s, and if they started endorsing candidates, then who else can start endorsing candidates? Planned Parenthood, ACLU, Freedom from Religion Foundation. I mean, everything religious and not religious, if it's a 501c3 and it was governed by those rules, dividing it from politics, then guess what? Gloves are off.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they understand how the world works.
No.
I think that they're in this Jesus bubble that is so small, it barely encompasses just them, and that's all they see.
Yep, they see everything as being Christian. They think that this is a Christian nation. It's not a Christian nation. It's founded as pretty much a secular nation. Yeah, there are things in the Declaration of Independence that, under God, and there is religious mentionings, but it's not established as a Christian nation. It was meant to be where people can practice their religion freely, and there's no specific religion, but because the majority is Christian in this country, that means that's what it is. And it's got to be Christian. And as soon as it's something else, it's wrong.
Right.
And I mean, okay, so religious Christians specifically, especially in the South, are pushing for creationism to be taught instead of evolution. Or, at the very least, creationism taught in the same sentence as evolution, right?
Right.
Well, what happens, and now I'm thinking about this as we're talking because I've never really thought about this, but what happens because now all religions can get themselves involved in government? What happens if mosques and Islam wants to have their religion put into schools? Just imagine that.
Right.
Not even in an educational sense, because I believe being taught religions in an educational standpoint is very important because it's important to know other cultures, and that's a big part of a lot of cultures. But what happens when Islam wants to put themselves inside of a school and they want to start being to have their students taught certain Islamic practices. It's not ever going to happen. So that's not really religious
People's
freedom.
heads will explode.
Oh, absolutely.
No, it's not. I mean, what if you wanted to, if the Hindus wanted to teach school children that the world is flat and resting on top of an elephant?
I remember
standing on a turtle.
I remember when I was younger, there was a lot of beef going around in public schools because schools were practicing, wait for it, meditation. Oh my God, that's Buddhism. That's not Christian. Christians don't meditate. So that was a big stink. Meditation's not even really religious. It's a practice for relaxation. So
yeah, ask Sam Harris.
Yeah. Exactly. And Austin and I talk about this quite a bit, but Christians they firmly believe that they're being attacked. That they're being targeted. They believe they're a minority. They honestly believe that. They think their religion is in danger.
Yeah.
And because of that, they become aggressive about it.
Yeah.
While other religions quietly just kind of try to practice their religion in the States, Christians are trying to shove it in your face because they think they're going to lose it.
Well, and that's the thing is what's always gotten me about American Christianity is that it is subversive, and the moment you question it, you're persecuting them. They are persecuted. Poor Christians.
I know. They've gone through so much.
Yeah, this country has been so bad to white Christians.
I know. Like, you can't even joke about it because it sounds so stupid. It sounds so stupid. It's almost as dumb as saying white people are being attacked for being white.
Hey, as a white male, I take offense to that.
Well,
I feel like you need to check your privilege.
Well, you know what? Fucking suck it up, because you have no idea. I have no idea. I'm a white male. I have no idea. Oh, jeez.
This has been a fantastic interview. I just have really enjoyed talking to you. Again, everyone can find you on Dumb All Over podcast and now on Affirmative Assessment podcast. And then we'll also, again, point out that your partner, Austin, is a musician, a great musician, who has his own music and his own, what was it, Single Shot?
Yeah, that's his solo show. He's going to start doing it a little bit more often now. So if you're hearing me for the first time and you're about to jump board, you're coming on a good time. We got a lot of cool stuff coming around. But Austin's actually made the theme song for you and me, so he's amazing.
Well, I really appreciate it, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
One of the most significant encounters I ever had with religion occurred when I was very, very young. If I recall correctly, I was hardly in elementary school at the time when my grandmother told me that I was going to be going to this vacation Bible school. I remember being told that I was going to have a blast and that it was going to be an amazing way to spend my summer. Keep in mind that at this time, I was only going to church on occasions when I was staying at particularly religious relatives' houses, and that I hadn't had a ton of exposure to religion as a whole, let alone Christianity. Even when I went to church as a kid, I was immediately corralled into a separate Sunday school area where I just colored pictures of a bearded guy and sang a bunch of songs that didn't mean anything to me. So, with a lack of knowledge regarding what I would be spending the next couple of weeks of my summer doing, tiny little 8-year-old Logan was prepared to have a blast. I even remember packing a bunch of my favorite toys because I was under the impression that this was going to be a fun summer retreat. I was very wrong. In fact, that turned out to be one of the worst summers I can recall. As soon as I first showed up at the camp, we were immediately separated into boys and girls cabins. I remember the only other times we would even be around the girls were the times that they pulled us all together under a big picnic area awning to address us as a group and show us some pretty horrendous video clips. But we'll get to that. Once we were assigned to our respective gender-specific camp experiences, we were immediately thrust into a locker room-style shower area. No separated stalls or even wall dividers. As I started to take my first community shower I had ever been forced to take, I was addressed by a particularly disagreeable young man. I don't recall if this camp was specifically set up for a range of religious beliefs, or just one in particular, but the naked boy had been interrogating every other naked boy in the shower about their respective religions. When it came to be my turn, I simply shrugged and said, "I don't know." It was the most honest answer I could give, because it was the truth. Up until that point, I really didn't know much of anything about religion, let alone what my own beliefs were. In addition to being my first time showering in a community shower, that happened to be the first time I was ever pushed down on the ground and made fun of for my religious beliefs, or lack thereof. Once I picked myself up and finished off my shower, I went and changed, and the all-male group had a very brief, very disgusting dinner, which, of course, was blessed with a mass prayer prior to consumption, another thing which had no real meaning or purpose to tiny little 8-year-old Logan. After our fantastically awful meal, we had our first of many fun experiences under the big picnic area awning, which I will henceforth refer to as the sheep pen, for reasons which will become painfully obvious in a few brief moments. After our flock had been led to the sheep pen, a very old and supposedly wise man stood at a podium in front of us all. He started spouting out the names of the wonderful businesses that had donated their funds to bring this summer camp to fruition, something else that tiny little 8-year-old Logan fully didn't comprehend or care about. Upon thanking each one of those kind-hearted business owners individually, he turned his attention to us and said something that basically boiled down to this. If you have been saved and accepted Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior, into your heart, please stand up and head to the back where will you partake in cake and punch. If you have not been saved, please remain seated. So all the good little sheep got up and left the awning area to go eat cake and have a jolly little picnic with the camp counselors, while the rest of us uninformed sheep then endured a 15-minute slideshow projected onto the wall at the front of the picnic area with all sorts of lovely information regarding our new best friend God and all he had to offer us. The end of the slideshow took a pretty morbid turn, however. The wise old man directing the presentation started talking to us about what would happen if we didn't become super pals with God. He informed us that we would suffer in the eternal pits of hell. Side effects include burning in a fire for the rest of your life, being shunned from society, and generally never being accepted as a person. I believe, and I may be mistaken here, that we were told that we would never have any true friends if we didn't find a friend in God. So, picture yourself as an 8-year-old being told that if you didn't make a new imaginary best friend, you would be set on fire and everyone would hate you. What would your reaction be? If you said sheer horror, then you guessed right. Nearly every single kid still sitting in that picnic area began sobbing and crying at the prospect of being a burning outcast for the rest of their lives. To make things worse, the wise old man then concluded his presentation and started approaching every single kid, one by one, individually asking if they would accept God as their Lord and Savior. What 8-year-old kid is going to be the only one in a giant group to say, "No, I'm not on board with the rest of these guys"? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the day I became saved and rescued my future self from a pit of eternal damnation. Except not really, because I really still had no idea what had actually happened. I was just patted on the back and given cake as a reward for my reaction, and all I knew was that I had this new invisible friend that always had my back. The rest of the camp experience was sort of a blur. There was capture the flags, tag, some more terrible food, and a lot of uncomfortable community showers with a bunch of other boys. I think at one point, that same disagreeable boy broke my favorite action figure, but that was pretty much about it. I came back home and proudly declared my newfound faith to my dad, who proceeded to ask me questions about my religion to figure out if I actually had any idea what I had just signed up for. It occurred to me that I really, truly knew nothing about Christianity even at that point and had no idea what to do about my new invisible friend. I really just didn't want to be set on fire. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the day I renounced God. We had a good run, he and I, but it just wasn't working out. It wasn't you, God, it was me. This is but one of the many stops I made on my way to finding myself where I stand today in regards to my religion, and not the only time I would get pushed down on the ground by disagreeable young men for what I did or didn't believe. But that's a story for another time.
Random verse. Random verse. Random verse. Random verse. Our random verse today comes from the Book of Mormon. We're reading 2 Nephi 25:29. Goes like this. And now behold, I say unto you that the right way is to believe in Christ, and deny him not. And Christ is the Holy One of Israel. Wherefore ye must bow down before him, and worship him with all your might, mind, and strength, and your whole soul. And if ye do this, ye shall in no wise be cast out.
That was wordy.
Okay, so apparently the Book of Mormon is, the whole thing is like that.
That is terrible.
Way too many words.
That's like the fine line between a Stephen King novel and an Anne Rice novel. Like, there's a point where you just go too far.
Yeah. You definitely can use too many descriptions of a thing.
As a side note, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like Stephen King should rewrite the Bible and make a Stephen King version of the Bible.
I think that Stephen King's Bible would be no more detestable or immoral than the actual Bible.
Oh, no, but at least it would be better because it would be... I would consider it... Well, I already kind of consider it a work of fiction, but...
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to the Sereniverse.
Yeah, so anyway, what I'm wondering here is, first of all, why is this such freaking nonsense?
Yeah.
And second of all, what do they mean the right way? The right way for what? The right way to plow your field is to believe in Christ? The right way to
I think it's just...
live your life?
Yeah, I think it's just the right way, period. Like, if somebody doesn't believe in Christ, then they're doing it wrong. And
Oh, so it should be like capital R right way.
Is that a thing?
Trademark.
Is that a Bible thing?
No.
Oh.
Well, I mean, okay, so here's the deal. Like, anytime that you are interacting with Christians, if they mention God, obviously God gets capitalized. But then if they talk about faith or salvation or anything like that, they will always capitalize those words.
That's weird.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, it makes them more special if they're capitalized? I don't know.
I capitalize my name. Does that make me special? Or does
You're
it
pretty
just
special.
Or does it just make me a proper noun?
Both?
All right. Well, we're getting sidetracked here. So, yeah, I think that that's probably the interpretation there, is that it's just the right way, period. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're believing in Christ while you do it, that's the right thing. In fact, I would say that if you're killing somebody, but you're believing in Christ while you do it, you're doing it the right way. Good job.
It's a loophole.
Yeah.
Like, for real, though, have you ever heard of deathbed confessions?
That if you confess while you're dying, then you're totally abstained of your sins. Or not abstained. Absolved. Absolved of your...
You should abstain from sins.
But yeah. I mean, isn't that the, like, confessions period? Like, if you go to a confession booth and you confess and you're just like, yeah, cool, good job, nice job, bro, you're back to square one, you're good.
Yeah. In Catholicism, that's especially a thing. But the Protestants are kind of weird about it. There is no confession, like, and actually this depends on what denomination you are. But for instance, like Southern Baptists, they believe that once you accept Jesus into your heart, then you are saved for eternity. It's called once saved, always saved.
Oh, so you never have to go to confession.
Yeah, there is no such thing as confession. That's not a mechanism in Southern Baptism.
So you can just do all the bad things and still be fine.
Yeah, and a lot of Southern Baptists do. But anyway, so the goal is anytime that you sin, you should just confess it straight to Jesus. Just, talk to him directly and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings.
I just had this mental picture of a guy, like, stabbing somebody else and being like, God, I'm stabbing this guy, but it's cool. Like, just to keep you updated, bro.
No, it could be like every single time that he stabs him and be like, I'm sorry.
It's a real thing that happens, though. That's why it's scary and funny, but scary.
I know.
This is for God.
The thing is, Christians believe that when you sin, you should be genuinely sorry, and then your goal should be not to do it again.
But if you do, you just apologize for it again.
And the cycle continues. Yes.
Seems legit.
So now that we've established that the right way to just do everything at all is to believe in Christ, what I want to know is, why is Israel the focus of all Christian religions? I mean, this is Western culture clinging to Middle Eastern tradition. And Protestant Christians, or I'm sorry, not even Protestants, all Christians disagree with Jews because Jews will admit that Jesus existed, but they don't accept him as the Messiah. And Jesus Christ is the foundational basis for all of Christianity.
I feel like this probably has something to do with the geographic aspect of the situation, because, I mean, if we're going back to Pangea, like, everybody started out, okay, well, obviously, all right, not back to Pangea, but, I mean, when civilized nations started becoming a thing and people started actually having organized religions, I feel like most of the area where that was coming out of was kind of localized to...
The cradle of civilization.
Yeah.
Between the Euphrates and the Nile.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like that's kind of where that comes from. Like, if you are a caveman who has only ever been in, like, a temperate forest area and you want to do some cave paintings, you're probably not going to be under the impression that there are a whole lot of places outside of the temperate forest area that you live in. So chances are that you're not going to be making any cave paintings about the Sahara Desert. So
yeah, and I think that actually describes the or the establishment of Christianity, because everything was happening in the Middle East under Roman rule. So, you know, when you read through the Bible, and even the Quran is very central to the Arab world. And at that time, I mean, there were trade routes and everything, but it really wasn't known. Like, the broader world outside of that area wasn't really well known. And so it was very ethnocentric and very geographically centric.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. Christian religion and its fascination with Israel really boils down to one thing, and that is prophecy. Because the goal of all Christian religions is actually to see Jesus' second coming and for the world to be destroyed and purified so that they can all be in heaven with God forever.
Yay, death to all mankind.
Woo! And I believe, and we're not, you know, we haven't talked about prophecy yet. We haven't really talked about heaven yet. We haven't really talked about hell yet. But just kind of a heads up, when we do talk about these things, I believe that what happens after the end times, when all of the good Christians are in heaven with God, is that everyone who went to hell just gets obliterated.
Dude, that's pretty dank, though. Like, that's kind of a get out of jail free card. If you're a piece of shit and you went to hell, then you're just like, yeah, nope, you're done. Get out of here. Goodbye.
Yeah. I mean, and that kind of comports with the atheist view of death, where you just cease. I mean, eventually that's going to happen. If you're an atheist and you go to hell, eventually you're just not going to exist. What I wanted to talk about is this part where he's talking about bowing down and worshiping with all of your might. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, how do you worship with all your might? Is it like bearing down and grunting? Like, do you have to grit your teeth, or might you accidentally poop your pants or something?
Well, that got pretty graphic. I mean, I guess it depends on how devoted you are to worshiping your Holy One of Israel. Because if you're not pooping your pants, you're probably not dedicated enough.
I would say that any god who is being worshipped so hard that the worshiper poops their pants should just be flattered.
I mean, yeah. Alright, here's the thing. If I were God and people were like, worship, 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 and then they poop their pants, I'd be like, alright, these guys definitely, they win. They got this one. They're good. I believe it.
I mean, that would be your chosen people. Yeah. Like, you have a group over here and they're like, worship, 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 and then they just get up and walk away and then, like, maybe go to the bathroom like a normal person. But then you have these other people, they're like, worship, 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 and then they're like, oh, dang, that's uncomfortable. And then you would be like, oh, I like those guys. Or, I don't know. I think that I would tend to go with the people who know how to use the bathroom.
Well, I mean, as a logical person, maybe, but actually, no, I still don't. I think that the person who poops their pants worshiping you so hard is probably the one who, if we're going with like blind faith here, you would want to have on your side. Because they're going to be like, I don't care if there's poop in my pants by the time I'm done worshiping this guy. I'm going to literally worship the crap out of him.
Okay, but here's the thing. Like, if you came over to my house and you were like, Dad, I love you, and you loved me so much that you pooped your pants, I would be like, you actually need to go home and change.
Oh, God. All right, check the poop and fart jokes box.
All right, check. Okay, so another thing is, how do you even know if you're using your whole soul to worship God? Is there a measurement on that? Can you meter that?
I mean, I imagine that it's probably using the metric crap ton system.
Oh, breakthrough.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't understand why this verse doesn't just say worship God a metric crap ton.
I mean, yeah, if we're talking about pooping your pants, then probably it should. It should just say, yo,
dude, could you imagine a metric ton of crap?
That would be way too much crap.
That's so much crap.
Although, that's what we got coming out of the White House right now. Oh!
I think you're too political right now.
But Daddy Trumpo...
Too political.
Oh, cries.
I mean, okay, so Daddy Trumpo thinks he's God, but he's not God. So we're talking about God, and we're not talking about Daddy Trumpo.
Okay, all right.
Fair?
My bad. Sorry, regular Daddy. That was too weird. Never again will I say that.
Yeah, that's really strange. All right. If you poop your pants and you worship a metric crap ton, then you will not get cast out of what? Like the community? You know how last week we talked about how religions can use shunning and exile as punishments for not believing?
I mean, yeah, I was literally talking about that earlier, where the camp counselor guy was like, you will not have any friends. Everybody will disown you as a person if you do not believe in this Jesus guy.
Yeah, and I do believe that Mormons are pretty strict. I mean, not quite on par with Scientology and the whole, like, we're going to set up a website saying that you're a pedophile. But I do think that, no, seriously, I do think that Mormons are really, really harsh when people try to leave the church. So I think that ye shall in no wise be cast out means from your community and your family.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. So either you poop your pants and you have friends, or you don't poop your pants and you're lonely forever.
But then, okay, so your choice comes down to hanging out with a whole bunch of poopy pants people or hanging out with non-poopy pants people.
Well, actually, that's a good question. I mean, you didn't ask a question, but if you were to have asked that in a question form, then yeah, it would be, are the other people who decided that they didn't want to poop their pants worshiping God so hard? Do you get to chill with them? Or are you cast out like you just get isolated to like a cave and they just like shove you in a cave and block it and then you're just in the cave by yourself?
Well, yeah, but it's going to be more than one person. So maybe it's like a leper colony. But let me ask you this.
Well, I don't think they have enough caves for that.
Well, it doesn't have to be a cave. Like, it could be a little island, or it could just be like a roped off area.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you are a poopy pants person and you were worshiping hardcore and you saw somebody who wasn't a poopy pants person, you'd be like, hey, get out of here, you not poopy pants person. But then would you really want that poopy pants person to go and have the freedom to associate with the other not poopy pants people? Or would you want to punish them by making them be alone forever? Actually alone, with nobody, let alone the non-poopy pants people.
Yeah, I don't really think that there's a whole lot of thought put into that. I mean, when Cain, after he killed his brother, he got sent out into the world with a mark, but he didn't have to, like, not talk to anybody. He went out and immediately slept with his wife and had a kid, and I have no idea where his wife came from, and I guess that's a topic for another episode.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Poopy pants or non-poopy pants when you're choosing your friends?
It depends on what they're pooping their pants over. If they're pooping their pants over me, then probably the poopy pants people. Like, as gross as that would be, I want people pooping their pants over me. But if they're pooping their pants over God, I'm probably going to go with the not poopy pants people.
And now that we've unloaded our metric crap ton of nonsense for the week, I want to thank you for listening. I also want to thank Logan, as always, for wearing pants, and our wonderful girlfriends for lending their talents to the podcast. We'll be back next week with another episode, but in the meantime, you can visit us on social media and throw a buck or two our way if you want to help us out. The title music for this podcast was created by Austin Colon and used with permission. The Wayward Willis is a media production of Willisware LLC, all rights reserved.
This has been The Wayward Willis. If you liked what you just heard and you want more of Jon and Logan, you can follow us on Twitter at Wayward Willis, Facebook at facebook.com/thewaywardwillis, or at willisweb.com. If you want to help the show and have a few extra dollars, you can donate per episode or per month on Patreon at patreon.com/wayward. We'll be back next week.